All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a book that has genuinely changed the game for so many people, Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's all about how these tiny 1% improvements can, over time, lead to absolutely remarkable results. And believe me, it all kicks off with a story that you'll have a hard time believing is real. This story starts on what should have been a normal day, the last day of James Clear's sophomore year in high school. But out of nowhere, a stray baseball bat flew through the air and hit him square between the eyes. He didn't even realize how bad it was at first. When a nurse asked him who the president was, he said Bill Clinton. The year was 2002. The right answer was George W. Bush. And that was the last thing he remembered.
The damage was just devastating. We're talking a medically induced coma to stop his brain from swelling. He had a broken nose, multiple fractures in his face, and his left eye was literally bulging from its socket. For weeks, he had this debilitating double vision. It took him 8 long months before he could even drive a car again. It felt like his entire life, all of his dreams, were just completely on hold.
Now, even after all that, and let's be honest, a pretty unremarkable high school career, he still had this belief that he could be a great baseball player. The real turning point, though, came when he got to Denison University. This was a fresh start. And it was here that he first stumbled upon the incredible power of starting small. So his comeback? It wasn't some huge, dramatic transformation. Not at all. It was the quiet, steady accumulation of habits that honestly seemed pretty minor on their own. While his friends were up late playing video games, he was building good sleep habits. While everyone else's dorm room was a mess, he kept his neat and tidy. These little things, they gave him a sense of control. And that confidence started to spill over into everything else in his life. And this brings us right to a core idea in Atomic Habits. The way we've all been taught to think about goals, it's often the very reason we fail. Let's break down why that is. Look, we're all trained to set goals, right? Lose 20 pounds, run a marathon, get that promotion. But Clear says this whole approach is just flawed. Goals are about the outcome. Systems, on the other hand, are about the process. When you're only focused on the goal, you're basically telling yourself, I'll be happy when I get there. But if you focus on the system, you get to feel good every single time you follow the process. And that's the real difference. Goals give you a temporary change, but a good system gives you a permanent lifestyle. The legendary football coach Bill Walsh got this completely. He wasn't obsessed with winning the Super Bowl. No. He was obsessed with making sure every tiny part of his team's process was perfect. His whole philosophy was, if you get the process right, the score takes care of itself. And, well, with 3 Super Bowl rings, I'd say it worked. Just think about it this way. Your current weight, it's just a lagging measure of your eating habits. The money in your bank account, a lagging measure of your financial habits. We don't get what we want, we get what we repeat. So if you really want to improve, you have to stop obsessing over the finish line and start perfecting the starting line. You fix the inputs, and the outputs will absolutely fix themselves. Okay, so this focus on systems, it builds to what I think is the most profound idea in this entire book, that real, lasting behavior change is actually identity change. Clear breaks down change into these 3 layers. Think of it like an onion. On the outside, you have changing your outcomes. That's the results. The next layer in is changing your processes, your habits and systems. But the very core, the deepest layer, that's changing your identity, what you truly believe about yourself. Now, most of us try to change from the outside in, but the change that sticks, that works from the inside out. It all starts with who you want to become. So what does this actually look like? Well, let's take fitness. The old way of thinking says the goal is to run a marathon, right? But with this new way of thinking, the goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. You see that shift? A marathon is a one-time thing. It's an outcome. But being a runner, that's an identity. Once you start believing, I am a runner, well, what do runners do? They run. It's just who you are. And this works for absolutely anything. Let's say you want to write a book. The old approach tells you the goal is not to write a book. The goal is to become a writer. A writer is someone who writes. It's their identity. And that is the magic right there. When your habits and your identity are aligned,
You stop having to force yourself to do things. You're just acting like the person you already believe yourself to be. So, if you're building these habits to become this new person, how big do those changes need to be? The answer is actually surprisingly small.
Habits are basically the compound interest of self-improvement, and the math on this is, well, it's kind of mind-blowing. If you get just 1% better each day for a year, you don't end up 365% better. No, because it compounds, you end up 37 times better. But here's the scary part. Look at the flip side. Getting 1% worse each day for a year, it brings you almost all the way down to zero. The difference in your trajectory is just massive. 37 times better. Let that sink in. It just goes to show that a tiny, almost invisible change in your daily habits can steer you to a completely different destination in a year. Success isn't about some massive, overnight transformation. It's the product of your daily habits.
And hey, this isn't just some nice theory. Sir Dave Brailsford proved it with the British cycling team. His philosophy was the aggregation of marginal gains. His team improved every single detail by just 1%. I'm talking about the ergonomics of the bike seats, the formula of the massage gel they used, even the paint on their truck to make it lighter. And the result? They went from being a pretty mediocre team to an absolute global powerhouse. It works.
Okay, so how do we wrap all of this up into something we can use every single day? Well, Clear gives us this simple but really powerful metaphor to guide our actions.
You know, your identity isn't some fixed thing you're born with. If you look at the word itself, it comes from Latin words that mean being and repeatedly. Your identity is literally your repeated beingness. So every action you take is like casting a vote for the type of person you want to be. Each time you write a page, you're casting a vote for I am a writer. Each time you go to the gym, you're casting a vote for I am an athlete.
And this really brings us to the ultimate point of all of this. Habits aren't really about having something, like a new job title or a smaller number on the scale. They're about becoming someone. They are the pathway you use to build your deepest beliefs about who you are. You literally become your habits.
So that's the final question this explainer leaves you with. Every single choice you make today, no matter how small it seems, is a vote that you are casting. And the good news is you don't need a unanimous vote to win the election. You just need a majority. So, who are you voting to become today? Thanks for watching.